Hello there, I'm Scotty. You're not, and welcome back to the Wrestling Corner. Chucky is still over here. Get out. I want to be in the video. No, but I want. Try that again. Welcome back to the Wrestling Corner. I really should start putting a wrestling shirt up there instead of Nicolas Cage. I'll try to remember to do that next time. With the draft tonight. If you've seen this, when this video goes up, it's going up on noon Central Time on Friday. The draft is happening for the WWE. Before I get into this show, let me voice my issues. So, they announced that NXT is part of the draft, which makes no sense. You know, I know people, I keep voicing my concern about this. People keep saying, well, they want NXT to be a third brand. I don't care. It's developmental. That's the way it should be. I hate the fact that you keep putting main roster stars down to NXT because I feel like every time they do that, lately, those main roster stars win championships. Championships that could be used to push future stars. You know, like Trick Williams just won. Imagine Shinsuke Nakamura goes back down and dethrones him as NXT champion. You know? And it's cool if they give the right rub. Now, I have many problems with Becky Lynch right now. She shouldn't have won that world championship. You need to push new superstars. You know, going in, there were three different female superstars people were saying it's either gonna be Liv, Nia, or Becky, and those were the final fucking three of the match. So yeah, it was way too obvious. I would have had either Zoe Stark or Shayna Baszler. Before you start saying Scotty, they're too young. No, it's not too soon for any of that. Shayna Baszler should have been a singles champion on the main roster years ago. She dominated NXT's and then came to the main roster and floundered. And they put her in stupid tag team after stupid tag team after stupid tag team after stupid tag team. Now that Triple H is in charge, bring back the Shayna Baszler of old. And all you had to do was one of two things. Shayna wins the Battle Royal and by eliminating Zoe Stark, and they hug, and she goes in to shake her hand, and Shayna turns on her the next week or something. Or you have Zoe Stark win, and Shayna turns on her, which will eventually lead to Shayna winning the title. I'm just saying, someone new, not the same recycled superstars over and over and over and over and over again. And while I'm on this subject of Becky Lynch, I don't think it was fair to Tiffany Stratton what they did to her in NXT. Tiffany Stratton was the NXT Women's Champion. Clearly, the plan was for her to lose the title to Becky Lynch, and then to get that rub, get the title back from Becky Lynch. But then Becky exercised her authority as champion and said, no, I'm only going to drop it to the Irish women's champion, to the Irish superstar, Lyra Valkyria. So the only reason why she was champion was because Becky would only drop it to her. You can't convince me otherwise. Anyway, let's go all the way back to 2009, which was 25 years ago, which was 15 years ago. Holy crap, 15 years ago. And this was sooner than the other ones. I feel like this was like a couple weeks removed from WrestleMania, so we see the flashbacks from last week, and it was, Randy Orton had been attacking the McMahon family, setting up his match against Triple H at WrestleMania. And look, this whole Randy Orton was on the brink of getting fired by Vince McMahon for what he did back in January. And then he won the Royal Rumble. Even though he was threatened to be fired, they just didn't. There's something about he was a Royal Rumble winner, they couldn't do it, whatever. And it was obvious he was going to go after Triple H because of what he was doing. And then Triple H retained at WrestleMania for some reason. In a match that really wasn't anything spectacular, to be honest. But he retained, and now they're still in the middle of this Robert Woods legacy. And then you have Triple H, who still wants revenge for what happened. You have Shane McMahon, and you have Vince McMahon. And they said, at Backlash, it's going to be a man tag match for the WWE Championship, which it's confusing and makes no sense. But anyway, and it's going to be Legacy, Randy Orton, Cody Rhodes, and Ted DiBiase versus Triple H, Shane McMahon, and Vince McMahon. And then Randy Orton challenges Vince McMahon to a match that night. And during the match, he gets the punt. And then Batista comes back after being viciously attacked by Orton before. And his return wouldn't last long because he'd get injured again. And then have to do another thing. He would come back till the end of 2009. Then he would jump to SmackDown and turn heel. Yeah, he would come. I remember that because he'd come back and make it look like he was going to retire. And he's like, my announcement was not that I'm retiring. So I'm going to SmackDown. And I'm just like, what? Then he turns on Rey Mysterio. So, yeah, I remember that. But first out, so we replay that, show that Batista is back, and then, whoa, never give in, whoa, never give out, whoa, never give in, I just wanna be loved. Yes, no more with the drugs. Although I feel like that one hasn't been since forever. Go get the drugs. No, like it's been just one we love. You know. Batista comes out, and I remember watching this and going, why aren't? I always hate it, and they still do it now. It's gone to a point where they care more about. See, draft nights should be about the draft. You got 3 hours. Let's do what we can, right? But it just seems like they want to push the stories, and nobody cares about the stories on draft night. So instead of having the first match of the draft, like we did last year, no, we have a talkie segment for about 10-15 minutes. About 10 minutes or so. Batista comes out and says he wants Randy Orton, and Shane comes out and says no, he wants Randy Orton, and then Triple H comes out and says no, he wants Randy Orton, and then the new Raw general manager, Vicky Guerrero, who should never ever be allowed to be on a microphone ever. Not only is her voice the most annoying thing I've ever heard, she has, like, she's almost worse than Sasha Banks when it comes to talking on a microphone. This woman has no charisma on a mic. Nothing. She's so blah. So you want to face Randy Orton in a match next week? I'm just like, I don't. It's annoying. So basically, what is laid out here is that tonight's main event will be a 2-on-3 handicap match. Legacy, that Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase versus Triple H, Batista, and Shane McMahon. And the winner, whoever gets the pinfall, will face Randy Orton one-on-one next week. That's there. Yeah. So, then we have our first draft pick match. It is Rey Mysterio representing SmackDown versus Evan Bourne representing ECW. Oh, I'm sorry. Rey Mysterio representing Raw, versus Evan Bourne representing SmackDown. This is a good little high-flying match. It goes pretty quick. But Rey Mysterio does end up winning, because, of course. And like I said in the last draft episode that I did, they didn't care about ECW at this point. They get one draft pick on the show, and this time it takes forever to even get to that one draft pick. I mean, it's not till towards the end of the show. Oh, it's not there. It's down here, right? Yeah. Yeah, down towards the end here. So, yeah. They didn't care. It was already becoming NXT without it being NXT. What NXT is now. New stars coming up. They were switching some main roster stars in there. But it was, they were doing talent initiatives here and there. So, but yeah, so the first draft pick goes to Monday Night Raw, and it is MVP, who is the United States champion. And can you tell that they're switching up the championships? And that's another issue I have with this year's draft. So they released the draft pools, and if you look, none of the champions are in the draft pools, because for the first time ever, all champions are exempt from being drafted, which immediately makes the excitement for this go down. Because you always want to see where the champions are going to land, right? Where the surprises, are they going to be, mixed up? And no. This year, the champions are locked in, they can't be drafted, and it's stupid. Here, though, this is where they were switching all the titles back. Except for one, but I'll explain, it gets changed back later. Yeah. So next we have Kane, and I was like, Kane representing Raw against the Brian Kendrick with Big Zeke Jackson in his corner. And yeah, this was a big squash match, basically. I mean, Kendrick tried. At one point, Kendrick runs outside the ring, and Kane goes after him, and then Big Zeke is like, ugh. But then he just gets big booted by Kane. Kendrick's back in the ring, chokeslam, 1, 2, 3. And the Big Show was coming to Monday Night Raw from a SmackDown. Well, it's a big show. And you always know when the Big Show's coming up because they say, come on, make it someone big. And then, oh, it's a Big Show. Okay, they kind of told you who it was going to be. By the way, the announced teams right now are Jerry Lawler and Michael Cole for Monday Night Raw, Josh Matthews and Matt Striker for ECW, and Todd Grishams and good old JR Jim Ross here, barbecue sauce, for SmackDown. I feel like, so, was this after the Coach was a part of it? Because I feel like the Coach was in SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, which would have been the last year. Because Mick Foley wasn't in there. And then by the time 2010 comes along, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, those are our announced teams. Next, Orton confronts Vicky Guerrero in the back, and this is where he's like, well, if they win, they get to face me. But what happens if Cody and Ted win? She goes, well, if Cody and Ted win the match, Legacy wins the match, then whoever gets pinned has to face Legacy in a 3-on-1 handicap match. And honestly, if this was made today, they would go for the latter choice, and whoever they would have the loser facing the handicap match because they just like to have that 3-on-1 adversity. And it would have been Triple H, and he would have beat them all. I'm just saying. Because everything has to be 3-on-1. Everything has to be, we have to show all the, show that they can climb up that hill. Like the unnecessary heel turn of Dakota Kai against Bayley when she could have had at least one. I mean, I figured out why they did it, because they need someone who can speak English to be the mouthpiece for damage control, but still. So. Okay, so, next is John Cena, the World Heavyweight Champion, versus Jack Swagger. Again, if you weren't already convinced that they were switching the titles back, so John Cena is from Raw, but when it was time for the road to WrestleMania, everything was focused on the WWE Championship on the Raw side. So Cena was in this triple threat with Big Show and Edge, where Big Show was Vicky Guerrero's secret lover or some shit, I don't know. And so all of John Cena's stuff is on SmackDown. So it's quite obvious they were switching the titles back. John Cena's World Heavyweight Champion is going against Jack Swagger. Oh no, okay, never mind. This is talking to John Cena. John Cena talks to Jack Swagger. I read it wrong. So, yeah, he goes back and he goes, John Cena, I'm the future. I'm going to show you I'm the future of ECW, and I'm the all-American. And John Cena goes, American. That's what I said. I'm the all-American American. And he's like, well, yeah, you're Jack Swagger. You're the ECW champion. You're the all-American. And Swagger goes, American. That's what I said. You're all-American. American. You say it twice? I would say, you can't see me. But yeah, so that sets up their match. For 2 draft picks, by the way, we're told. And then we have Maurice, Michelle McCool, Natalia versus Mickie James, Kelly, and Melina. To be honest, I didn't even pay attention to this. At this point, I was getting my din-din ready. And I wasn't even paying attention to this match. I didn't even realize it was going on. But whoever was on SmackDown Maurice, Michelle McCool, and Natalia won. They're on SmackDown. And the women's champion, Melina, who was in the match, that's the first time of the night that someone who was in the match gets drafted after losing. And Melina, the women's champion, goes to SmackDown. Yeah. Now we have John Cena versus Jack Swagger. And this was a decent match. It was a decent match. It was pretty good, but it's obvious John Cena was winning. And unlike previous champion versus champion matches, there was a clean finish. Cena just beat him. Unlike the ones with Edge, they did 2 years in a row and had a screwy finish both times. Here, it just did him. Because it's ECW champion, who cares, right? But 2 draft picks for Raw, even though he is the champion from SmackDown. Matt Hardy goes to Monday Night Raw. Yeah, he was in the middle of a feud with his brother. He would have another match at Backlash, I think, against Jeff before the brand's been solidified. But yeah. And Triple H. Hey, look at that. Triple H is back on Raw. Who saw this coming? Everyone. Hopefully. And then we have a Santino Marella versus the Great Khali. And we see a flashback to the previous week because this is deep in the Santina Marella, Santino's twin sister, Santina, who won the WrestleMania Women's Battle Royal. We declared the greatest women's superstar in history or something, in WrestleMania history or something. And that was a joke, man. You got all those women, and Vince McMahon's like, ha ha ha! I'll have a man win this women's battle royal. Ha 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 ha! It was a big joke. You can see how what he thought of the female division at this point. He didn't care so much. We're gonna crown the greatest female wrestler in all of WrestleMania history, and it's Santino in drag. So they get ready for this match, and then Beth Phoenix, who was Santino's girlfriend at the time, apparently, said that before Santino had his match, if Great Khali wins, the next week Santina will be Khali's guest on the Kiss Cam, because they were doing that at this point. And Santino is immediately scared. And then he gets squashed by the Great Khali. A draft pick to SmackDown, CM Punk, who was once again Mr. Money in the Bank 2 years in a row. He would go on to cash that in on Jeff Hardy down the line, and then Jeff Hardy would be released eventually. And then the infamous time where they would play Jeff Hardy's music, and it appears that Jeff Hardy was coming out, but it was CM Punk dressed as Jeff Hardy. I love that. I'm sorry. I think it's fucking funny. Next, we had The Miz with John Morrison in his corner versus Kofi Kingston and ECW versus Raw draft pick match. And this match ended by disqualification because the match was good. The match was pretty good. I'm like, how's this going to end? And it ends in disqualification because John Morrison tries to get involved and push Kofi Kingston off the top rope, but the referee saw it. I don't know if it was a botch or not. It felt like it was a botch. Like, The Miz was supposed to distract Charles Robinson, but he wasn't able to do it right in time. And Charles Robinson realized that he was looking right at him, so he had to call an audible and cause a disqualification. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, because if Kobe was going to win anyway, though, I don't understand how that move would have went through. So maybe it was on purpose. I don't know. It was a little iffy. But the draft pick goes to Monday Night Raw, and it's The Miz, who immediately turns on John Morrison. Yeah, we'll talk about John Morrison later, because he gets his own push. But yeah. Oh, The Miz's whole thing, he goes in a rivalry with John Cena, where John Cena's not even there. He keeps challenging John Cena to matches where John Cena is injured, so he doesn't come out, or he doesn't answer, so he doesn't come out, and so he wins by forfeit. So he's like 5-0 against John Cena. He hasn't even had a match with him. I don't know what they were doing, but yeah. Next we have the tri-branded Battle Royal for 2 draft picks. Of course, Raw won the last 2 draft picks, so of course SmackDown is going to get these. But for our teams, we have Raw has MVP, Crime Time, Big Show, and Mike Knox. Crime Time is 2 people, JTD and Shad. Rest in peace, Shad. SmackDown has Carlito and Primo, R-Truth, Chavo Guerrero, and Edge, who they already say won last year's Battle Royal. And then we have ECW has Finley, Tyson Kidd, Paul Burchill, Mark Henry, and Ricky Ortiz. Oh. So yeah, and this is teams, because they learned from their first one where it was everyone for himself. So now it's every brand for themselves, as they say, and SmackDown wins. So they get Kane. Is this when Kane becomes world champion? He wins the Money Bank briefcase. Is it right? And then he catches it in on Rey Mysterio. I think it is. No, that's next year, isn't it? No, it is this year, because he has a whole thing with The Undertaker. Right. And then Chris Jericho. And Chris Jericho... Okay, let's talk about Chris Jericho on SmackDown, because it didn't really happen. Because he and Edge were supposed to be the Undisputed Tag Champions. They won at the Bash. They won them in a triple threat tag match. And then... Edge got injured. He injured his Achilles tendon and had to be out for quite a few months till the Royal Rumble when he came back and won. But, although I think they could have had them on both brands anyway, I don't know. Chris Jericho had to get a new partner. It was the Big Show. Since one was on Raw, one was on SmackDown, they kind of floated back and forth. But most of their feuds were on Raw, which had me thinking that's the way it would have been with Edge anyway. So, I don't know. But, yeah. And then, spoiler alert, Chris Jericho gets drafted back to Raw the next year anyway. And they do a whole thing. Maybe I should wait till the next one, but I'll say it then too. But they do a whole thing towards the end of the year where Chris Jericho loses a match and is then banned from Raw and has to stay on SmackDown now because he's not tag team champion anymore, and he keeps trying to pop up, but he's banned completely. And then he ends up being drafted back to Raw anyway, so that was pointless. But anyway, yeah. Next we have an ECW versus SmackDown draft match. Christian versus Shelton Benjamin. And Christian won. Christian wasn't ECW champion yet. Jack Swagger was earlier, so he's got to lose at some point. Yeah. And ECW gets Vladimir Kozlov, who was kind of on fire on SmackDown. He had a decent push, but then they put him on ECW, and then he did nothing to be a hired hand for William Regal at one point. It did, I don't know. He was in a sort of a tag team with Ezekiel Jackson, I guess. Next, we have a SmackDown versus Raw draft pick match. CM Punk representing SmackDown now versus Matt Hardy representing Raw. And another one that ends in a disqualification because Jeff Hardy interrupts and attacks Matt Hardy. So Raw gets a draft pick. And it's the Divas champion Maryse going to Monday Night Raw. So, yeah. Next, we have a SmackDown versus ECW draft match. The last draft match of the night. And it's Chris Jericho versus Tommy Dreamer. Can you guess who won? It's Chris Jericho. And he ends up getting their Intercontinental Champion, Rey Mysterio. So all the titles except for the World title switched brands. I guess you can say the World title will switch brands, but John Cena is technically on Raw still, but it hasn't yet. John Cena will lose that World title at Backlash in a last man standing match when Big Show would show up and choke slam him through the light thing for some reason. Yeah. And we have our main event, which I'm going to kind of quickly go through. 2001. 2-on-1 handicap match. Triple H, Batista, and Shane versus Rose and DiBiase of the Legacy. The three guys won. And so Triple H got the pinfall, so he'll be facing Randy Orton next week. And that's it. They also had, trying to fight to get the pinfall, because of course they will, because whoever pins gets Orton. So, but, So they kind of round out the draft. On the main show, Raw got MVP, Big Show, Matt Hardy, Triple H, The Miz, and Maryse. That's interesting. ECW got Vladimir Kozlov, and SmackDown got Melina, CM Punk, Kane, Chris Jericho, and Rey Mysterio. Even though they tried to be even, there was an even number of draft picks, but Raw got the most with 6. SmackDown with 5, and ECW with 1. And then we got the post-draft, the supplemental draft. Raw got Mr. Kennedy, which I think is his last time in this. Carlito and Primo were the tag team champs. The Bella Twins, who would then go over to ECW, and then back to Raw, I think. I don't know. Chavo Guerrero, who was on Raw because of Vicky Guerrero, but she wouldn't last long as GM anyway. And I think he ends up going back to SmackDown anyway. I don't know. Hornswoggle, for some reason. Festus, who would do nothing until he was repackaged as Luke Gallows and sent back to SmackDown later that year. And the Brian Kendrick, who also would do nothing. He had a few matches, I think, but nothing. ECW got Ezekiel Jackson, split from the Brian Kendrick. Zack Ryder, split from Kurt Hawkins, who would stay on SmackDown. D.H. Smith, who would form, and Natalia, who would form the Hart Dynasty in ECW. And Hurricane Helms, who would be released by February. And SmackDown got Crime Times, Alicia Fox, Mike Knox, who was already on Raw, and I don't remember anything from him being on Raw this time. Candice Michelle, who, again, most like her last time on SmackDown, wouldn't do anything. Only the time she get released. Ricky Ortiz, who would spend most of his time on Superstars. Layla, John Morrison, who ended up becoming Intercontinental Champion. Dolph Ziggler, who began a rivalry with the Great Khali, and this was when he was shaking hands. Hi, I'm Dolph Ziggler, shaking everyone's hands. And Charlie Haas, who probably would do jack shit on there as well. And I should also mention that there would be some trades where, like I said, Beltons would go to ECW, but then also Evan Bourne, Mark Henry, and Jack Swagger would eventually be sent to Raw as part of some draft exchange. And at some point, Shelton Benjamin goes to ECW this year, because I remember I watched ECW back in 2009. You had Abraham Washington show and all that. It was the last year. It was fun. They had a whole bunch of the episodes 2009 on YouTube, way back before they had a WWE network. You could watch them all. So they had went to those 2009 ones that I watched. So yeah, and that's the draft. You can really tell that this is when they were kind of just like, we're gonna do it, because like when the first thing you do on the show is that's nothing you do with the draft, you're more concerned about telling a story, which on a draft night you shouldn't really need to do. Draft night should be like an Elseworlds situation where nothing else really matters. You could do some kind of storytelling here and there, but it's a draft night. No one is gonna turn on the draft and be like, okay, who's gonna get drafted, and be excited when you get a 10-minute talking segment with Batista, Shane McMahon, and Triple H. It's just like, can we please just move on to the draft? And it gets more frustrating with the 2011 one, because that's only 2 hours and they still meander with talking segments. If I remember, the 2010 one like starts off right away with the Battle Royal, because they're getting that done. But anyway, yeah, this was still kind of a fun thing. Go back and watch this 15 years on. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on the 2009 WWE Draft? No comment, so much like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'm Sky, and I'll see you in the next one.